Sweet. Here we are. All right. So working on ships. Oh yeah, forgot I should do an introduction. Hi everybody. Um, so I am working on adding ships to Uboat as a mod and doing all that wonderful stuff. If you've been following any of my little pings on Steam and Steam Images or Subsim forums or wherever else, you should probably be familiar with what I'm doing. Um, so I'm just gonna record. I'm probably not gonna talk that much. I just thought I'll just talk, work, see where it goes. Not gonna be that long. I do have to get back to real life here in a little bit, but this will be good for kind of documenting what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, so that if other people want to do it, hey, it's not that hard, and you can do it too. All right, cool. So I'm in Unity, got ship, load up. I imported a prefab from Sketchfab, which was made by a wonderful person who I will link in the video, because I do not remember their name off the top of my head, but they make wonderful ship models from World War II, and I've been basically using and abusing his amazing work to import into the game. Obviously, I don't take credit for any of the models. These are not mine. The texture's not mine. All I do is I bring them into the Unity engine and give them life, basically. So that's the only thing I can really take credit for. Other than that, we're gonna get to it. So let's see what I can do. So got some ships here in my local scene in Unity, and over here you can see some of the components that are attached to the ship, and these components are what give that ship life, right? It tells the game this is a ship, it does things, it's got this weight, it's got this physics, has these maybe selection effects, AI, things like that, right? All these wonderful things. And I add these components to the ship. I can, over on the left-hand side, you can see the subcomponents of the ship. So we have here the Atlanta, and it has subcomponents like a hull, components, which is really like weapon systems, rudder, propellers, things like that. The mesh, or at least the mesh that isn't a part of the hull, which is basically everything else. Normally in the vanilla game, this is called static contents or dynamic contents, depending on if that piece of the mesh is supposed to break off or do something or just disappear when the ship gets destroyed. So that's all here and listed. We have other things like storage, which usually has sub portions for what type of storage. But this is like, where is the ammo stored, food stored, fuel. Actually, no, fuel is not included. And then we have FX, which normally would actually have FX components in here, such as particle effects, sound, audio, fire effects for the guns, right? But because right now all we're doing is trying to get the ship working, bare minimum state kind of thing, floating properly, that's really all I'm focused on right now, is kind of either A, going 1 through 1, or 1 by 1, adding more ships to the roster of ships with components attached to them, and then adding these very bare bone child objects with their components to get them working. We have a center of mass component. I don't know if that works. Banner attachment point, which just doesn't. It does some very minimal things, and some colliders. And so this is really where I'm in the weeds, right? It's colliders, right? Normal game uses a neural network physics component, which is basically a neural network that's been trained on the ship model to float and act properly in water. And the developer of DWS, the only developer on DWS, is the one that created it. He created the water effect in the game as well, so he's quite talented. And in Unity, we currently don't have the ability to create or recreate our own neural network physics for ships. So this is kind of what I'm doing here is I am forcing in box colliders and using a different type of water physics script that they had from much earlier in the development of the game. It's called water physics component. It's used normally for things like debris floating in the water. When a ship breaks in half, a portion of that ship becomes, or both portions of that ship become attached to water physics. So I'm basically using the water physics components from the game to make the ships float. Comes with some drawbacks though, because a lot of the game is built to expect a neural network physics attached to the ships, and so this could be kind of like a temporary solution to a long-term problem. But until I can actually make my own neural network physics using the dev's utilities, this is the best I got. So, how does the ship float? It's got colliders, and you can see these colliders are basically lined up on the ship hull in such a way that it has a buoyancy element. Each one of these has a buoyancy element, or there's a physics component attached to it, and it's what basically tells the game, hey, this thing is buoyant, it should float on top of the water. However, it's a little bit bigger than it needs to be in some cases. In other cases, it's wider. Not perfect, but it gets the job done in a very basic sense. And so we just take these colliders, attach them, assign, here's a collider that I'm selected. We assign a box collider, give it some values of size, then we add a water physics component, and that does the magic. Now this box, this invisible box, will float. And it's basically attached to a ship, and the ship will float with it. It's not the way we're supposed to do it, but it's the only way that works right now. Hopefully in the future I can use a neural network. And so we have a collider in each one of the primary axes of the ship, left and right, back and front, or bow and aft, whatever. And the reason for this is if you only put one collider, it's going to want to rotate because it's just one collider in the center space of the ship, and physics basically says I'm only looking at a single point of this collider, and right now I see that it should be, rotating, because it kind of just treats it like a spheroid, and it just flips over end to end. So putting in two on the side and one on the back and front kind of gives it 4 different points to balance in between, and so that allows it to roll, yaw, pitch, whatever, with the water as the water moves around it, and it's a little bit more realistic and believable. However, if you've seen some of my videos, the ships seem to float a bit high on the water. So we're going to be trying to take care of that. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we'll see where this ends up. So I'm going to get to work. I may not talk the entire time, but I am working. So that's why I'm not talking the entire time. I've never done this before, so what do you know? So we're just lining it up. Full component. This one is kind of just an additional. I don't really do anything with this top one, but the front, middle, and sides, those are really the meat and potatoes of this buoyancy. I try and make them as level as possible because the volume of these boxes I will calculate to try and get everything working properly. It looks good. It's kind of all lined up. It's a little bit, some areas it's a little bit too big, so whatever. It's good enough for us. I'm gonna refresh the project, make sure all the changes get applied. I'm gonna apply the changes to this scene element, which is the ship. It's going to get applied into the prefabs. So I click apply, overrides, apply all, and then all the changes I made to the scene get distributed into the prefabs that are associated with this ship. There's only one, but now the change has been put to that file. And that file is this right here, our actual prefab, which gets loaded into the game. So, what did I just do? What did I just do? Amagi. Uh-oh. Materials, Amagi. There we go. Refresh again, validate, manifest, and deploy mods. Now, I already have the game up and running from a previous run. We're going to see where we're at with the game right now. With our last build that I did. We're going to load up. I made some changes earlier, basically what you just saw me do there. Changing the colliders, changing the buoyancy, trying to get the ships to kind of float right. I want them to sit lower, which isn't really working out too pretty, but we're getting there. Some of the other problems that I've found with this is that using the box colliders and the water physics component, the ships no longer want to move. Like, they're basically stuck in place. And my first impression was, oh, well, box collider, I gave it a volume, it has a surface area. So my concern was that because I'm not using the regular way of doing things, the game basically says this is a box. It should take an obscene amount of energy to get that box moving forward through the water. And so I was concerned that maybe because I'm not using a mesh as my collider, I'm using a box, that the game was basically not allowing the ships to move because it just saw too much friction and drag in the collider space and the collider physical entity. May or may not be the cause, but I'm not too worried. Bjorn. Alright, so we spawned a Bjorn ship, and look at that thing. Oh my gosh, it's floating. Boys and girls. The most important part of this is how is it floating. Alright, it's kind of canted off to the back. And I'm kind of just guesstimating what's going on here. Right, it seems to sit really high on the water. It looks like whatever's supposed to be giving it buoyancy here, the predominant amount of center of mass kind of moved back. So we'll look into fixing this eventually. Really good looking model, I have to say. Gosh, that guy's really good. I mean, it's not the best, but hey, work with what you got. Oh man, that looks great. Absolutely fantastic. So, it's kind of floating weird, but hey, what do you know? It's floating. Let's do the Magi. There we go. Kind of a highlight effect that's appearing on the ship. You can just highlight it real quick to make it go away. And look at that, the Amagi. Got a weird, odd hull shape. But overall, looks pretty good. There are some meshes here, like the boats. I think that could be toned down a bit. There's this gun right there that looks like it is meshed, but it's a bit bright. Doesn't really look metalish. The other base metals look fine. There's that white there that looks obscenely bright, but those are just simple edits that we can do to some of the materials. And that's not really something I'm too concerned about right now. Again, my intent is just to get the functionality, the basic functionality of a ship in place so that if and when the devs decide to drop by and help me, that I can just quickly make the changes and edits that I need to make to really get this thing on its feet. Yeah, that's looking actually really good, I gotta say. Yeah, I got some boats under here. Some pretty nice bump mapping. I mean, it's not the greatest, obviously. It's not the highest resolution. It's probably sitting around, some of these meshes are probably only 10,000 byte or 10,000 pixels by 10,000 pixels, or not 10,000, 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels. We have this guy here, which actually, funny enough, is placed at the center of mass of the ship, or the center point of the ship. And I do that purposefully to know, in cases like this, where the game is considering the center point. And so, like, for example, one of the reasons I think this bad boy is floating backwards is because the center point is a little bit far back. And so I think this guy, our center point, which I believe as of right now is where the game is considering the center of mass, is a little bit too far back. And so it could be something as simple as me just moving the mesh backwards. It's not an ideal situation or solution, but just moving the mesh backwards along the center point a few meters might actually help balance this thing out. Inversely, I could move the colliders forward. My only issue with that is, the colliders are also going to be used for things like torpedo impacts and that kind of stuff. So I do have to be kind of careful to make sure that I'm not like having a collider that's going to interfere with how torpedoes work. Actually, here you could see that I can move my camera through here. And that is because the only collider on this ship is those boxes I created. And yeah, that's... Oh, what's that? What is that? Oh, that's cool. Nice. It's like a little... Yeah, so the only colliders on the ship are those boxes. You can actually see my camera running into them as I kind of move through the space. And I just hit the edge of a box right there. So that kind of helps me gauge like what needs to be going on, right? And it could be something as like just move the colliders up away from the waterline and the whole ship will float lower. Alternatively, I could just make the box colliders have less buoyancy or be smaller in their volume attribute without actually changing the size of it, which is actually kind of nice that you can do that. To better match up with like the total displacement that we'd expect. There is something here that is just huge. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, is this collider backwards? Is there a collider that's like, oh. So, I think there's a collider right here that I'm running into. Right here. And I'm definitely running. I think that's the old ship collider, or the old ship mesh collider. That might be. Yeah, I'm running into another mesh right there, and that's probably another reason why it's canted like that. All right, cool. So there's a hidden mesh right here that has a mesh collider assigned to it because I cannot move, and I'm pretty sure that is something, either a box collider or something else that I'm running into. So you'll kind of see me do this a lot. I'll like move my camera right along the hole. See if I run into something like I just did again there. And it looks like this one also has a mesh collider perpendicular to the actual ship model, right? So that's another nice indication that something's kind of awry. And we can try and reassign those and stuff like that to try and fix it up. So let's do that now. And actually, while we're here, before we do that now, as I so perfectly stated, let's go see some of the others. All right, Amalia spawned Ayanami, and Ayanami. Let's see how that one looks. Ooh, Oh, it's just sinking. Oh god, it's just sinking. Is it gonna float? It almost looks like it's about to float. So maybe that one's a little too heavy. Or it just doesn't have a buoyancy anywhere on it. Whichever. Yeah, it's totally sinking. These two actually state that they're sinking, which is kind of funny. And actually, if you look at this ship, no, it's about perpendicular. So let's spawn some more. Arc Royal. Let's do that one. Spawn Arc Royal. See how that one looks. Oh, it's just replaced. Huh. Look at that. That is a interesting way of floating. Yeah, still seems like it has a collider mesh somewhere in there. So I think there's just somewhere there's something assigned. It's just perpendicular. It's probably like an older model that I used. Those guns look nice. Yeah, the coloring is actually very much on point. So, well, maybe it's a little bit dark. So yeah, so that's funny. This one actually seems almost too dark. And maybe this will be the color I stick with, but yeah, I think I'm gonna lighten that one up a bit just to kind of get it to match with everybody else. Well, now that I think about it, is Kagi the one that's Kagi, whatever the ship is called? So, yeah, there's some color discrepancies here. Like this base metal right here, this little trim that you see is actually the metal color that I'm starting out with. I kind of gauge everything off of that. I get that metal color proper, and then I work with everything else to kind of make it match in a general sense of color. There'll be slight differences in the color, but for the most part, that's about lined up. And look at that. Oh, we just shot through a mesh right there. Yeah, so those colliders are definitely, I think that might actually be almost 100% what it is. And oh yeah, the thing I changed here, I changed the bump mapping on the deck a little bit. So the deck is very smooth now. Very smooth. I mean, it still has this little like detail texture that's there, but overall it's very smooth. I actually might want to increase the bump on the deck just a little bit, right? It's not perfectly smooth. It shouldn't be perfectly smooth. There should be a very kind of light discrepancy to the texture, right? So there is the detail texture you can see there, like it looks like paint. I might change that someday. But I do want kind of like when you're looking at it at an angle to have some overall discrepancies in the colors. So like if you look at the hull, right, you kind of see there's a little bit of variation in the reflection and how it's reflecting, and you can kind of see it as a pan. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. Obviously too much and it looks like, someone just dinged the whole hull with a hammer, and too little and it just kind of looks cheesy, right? The asset kind of just doesn't have the characteristic of being lifelike. Like this one, this one's a little intense, right? So kind of the inverse of that, that material, that bump texture on this material is a little bit overkill. And let's see this one. Yeah, this is probably a bit closer to what I want. It could even be toned down a little bit. And really, I'm not looking at the red section of the hull as much as I'm looking at this lighter section. Because that's the one that you're really going to be seeing. Underwater, this should have it should look rough on the edges underwater. Yeah, but overall, they're looking pretty good. Make small adjustments here and there. Really haven't locked in the process. The Allen Summer. Really haven't locked in the process into how I'm doing this. Oh, No, that one, that, oh, maybe, was that the one? Oh, he just, gone. Gone, son. Said, nope, I'm out. Try a different one. Algae. I always want to call it algae. The algae. There we go. There's a floating ship for once. Oh, is he gonna roll? Oh, it's gonna roll. And so this is the other issue that I run with a lot. That I believe, once again, there's another mesh. It's tucked away. Oh, there isn't. Oh, okay. So there isn't another mesh just tucked away. Wow, that's interesting. Okay. Okay. That's really interesting. Let's actually see if some of the other working meshes that I have. Bismarck. Let's see if the Bismarck has that issue. Bismarck. Alright, so this is one that I'm actually a bit more comfortable with as far as its state right now. Let's settle. It could still come down a bit, alright? It's still floating pretty high in the water. But there's that first mesh, that second mesh, and see, yeah, no hidden meshes here. So we'll take a look at, kind of compare contrast this model with that other one, kind of get a sense of what might be causing it. And again, all this is kind of, you know, up in the air up in the air as far as how I'm going to be doing it. So it's kind of like I don't want to go too far off the deep end trying to fix every little nook and cranny of buoyancy until I'm really satisfied with, you know, the method and the technique, and so that when I reproduce it for every ship, it's going to work, it's going to be consistent, it's going to be happy, hunky-dory for the players, right? I don't want to be doing it slightly differently every time or customizing every single time. So, let's go jump into Unity. Oof, never mind. Alright, well, Unity's building, so we're not going to be able to do much with Unity at the moment, sadly. What we can check, some of the other things I've been working on, B25, let's see if that bad boy's working. Teleport. There we go. Hey girl, how you doing? Yeah, look at that. Terrible highlight effect that needs to be disabled, and the smoke effect, which is it really ahead of us? Oh, no, but it's not opaque. So I wonder what's going on there. Alright, so it's alerted. That's good. Hey, it's turning. That's good. I did a lot of fixes to this. Obviously, I broke some things in the process. Which was, oh man, he's turning obscenely fast. We gotta tone that down. He's turning, that was obscene. Maybe turn down the power and agility on this aircraft. But let's see if we can see. No, the windows are still rendering like a piece of ass. Let's take a little bit slower. See if I can get that highlight effect going. Highlight effect is kind of the highlight effect lines and this tinting that you see on the body. It's supposed to go away when I like hover my mouse over it. But for the most part, I think I just end up disabling it entirely. So, you know, win some, you lose some. Things we're looking at here, the gun orientation, really important how that's working out because it's very difficult to get these guns to kind of orient themselves properly. These all look like they're orienting properly because targets are off to the kind of the left. This guy's trying to turn as much as he can to the left, the right, his right. This one is actually looks like don't know what he's pointing at. So what we'll see is if a gun orientates itself an odd way. Trying to see if it's going to fix its orientation. And it doesn't. It actually looks like it might be pointing backwards. Because you would expect that MG on the left-hand side to be kind of the other way around. And same thing with this MG. It's kind of pointing in on itself. So just some orientation issues and fixes, I believe. Yeah, this one looks like it's pointing right. Look at that. Wonderful. That one's pointing perfectly. That's excellent. Yeah. Pretty perfectly. That one looks like it's not doing jack. That one looks like it's pointing inboard too much. You know, simple fixes here and there. That's another big thing, is getting like orientation and transformations properly in Unity, because it seems like a lot of the game code basically only considers its orientation in one global direction. It's not like local or like in relation to the center of the entity, right? So like if you have a gun behind the center point of the entity, you'd consider that gun facing backwards, right? If you have a gun in the front of a ship, you know, facing forward, you consider it facing forward. It looks like all guns consider themselves facing forward, regardless if they're behind the ship, pointing the other way, whatever. And so you have to do some really nifty kind of transformations to get the game to kind of recognize, hey, this is pointing in the opposite direction. It'd be nice if the devs added something like a, you know, looking backwards or something, or you know, some additional code to try and just quickly set up that logic to be, you know, in a different orientation. But right now we don't have that. And look at that bad boy. Belly up. But yeah, this guy's flying pretty well. I mean, he's turning obscenely fast. And, you know, what do you know, right? I might actually get these rudders to do some wicked magic. I might be able to get them to tilt properly. That looks great. Yeah, that looks, I mean, obviously besides the ship being upside down, it just overall, you know, it's really nice to see the ships in the game. So, I think we're doing good here. Alright, I'm going to cut this video. I just wanted you guys to kind of see what I'm doing, give some voice to the video. You know, lurkers and stuff will love these. They'll watch them, be like, wow, ooh, ah. Right, maybe in the year 2028 we'll have a wonderful mod that incorporates all these into the game. Oh, hey, here he goes. We'll finish off with this wonderful thing. So one of two things is going to happen. Nothing, which is probably what's going to happen. Or B, the ship that you see him attacking is going to disappear. Oh, shoot! It disappeared. Yeah, my boy. You put him into the upside down. Or snapped him out of existence like Thanos. Nice. That was excellent. So that's another little bug that we're dealing with. Oh, look. Top turret turned. That was great. That was a lot of bombs. That was exactly what I wanted to see, was a ton of bombs get dropped at the same time. That's excellent. That was really good. That was great. Alright. Bombs working. Going back around. Alright. Well, that's it for this video. I'm going to try and let Unity compile, you know, make some changes, and we'll try and record some of my Unity work that I do inside the engine. Get this game to work out right. Oh, he's going to drop bombs? Nope, I think he's out. Alright. See you guys around until the next time.